In the world of combat sports and Hollywood spectacle, there are dream matchups fans can only fantasize about until now. Imagine two titans from completely different realms colliding in an arena where strength, skill, and sheer willpower are the only currencies that matter. One is a dominant force in mixed martial arts, an undefeated warrior whose discipline and relentless grappling have humbled the best fighters in the world. The other is a global icon, a juggernaut of power and charisma, a man who has faced giants inside the ring and conquered the silver screen with unstoppable energy. Khabib Nurmagomedov vs. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, an impossible showdown. Or is it? It all started with a simple conversation that took the internet by storm. A passing comment, a social media exchange, and suddenly, whispers turned into roars. Khabib, the undefeated former UFC lightweight champion, had retired on his own terms, walking away with a perfect record, leaving fans in awe and opponents relieved. But what if the eagle had one last flight left in him? Across the world, The Rock, one of the most electrifying entertainers in history, was no stranger to combat. Though known for his wrestling and Hollywood action sequences, he had the physique, the work ethic, and the warrior spirit to stand toe-to-toe with any challenge. And when asked about stepping into a real fight, his answer was simple: "I never back down." The stage was set, but the details remained a mystery. Was this an exhibition? A grappling contest? A no-holds-barred fight under special rules? Speculation spread like wildfire, fueling endless debates among fight analysts, wrestling fans, and movie buffs alike. Could a man who had trained in the brutal world of professional wrestling hold his own against one of the most dominant grapplers in MMA history? More importantly, what would drive them to even consider such an event? Behind the scenes, negotiations were unlike anything the sports world had seen before. There was no championship on the line, no promotional belts to be won, just pure competition, an ultimate test of skill versus power. Khabib's camp, known for its unwavering discipline and commitment to honor, saw it as a challenge that went beyond sport. The Rock, a man who had built his entire career on defying expectations, viewed it as a chance to prove that under his Hollywood persona, there was still a fighter willing to put everything on the line. As the announcement drew closer, tensions escalated. Critics dismissed it as an impossible spectacle, claiming there was no way a real fight between the two could ever happen. Supporters, on the other hand, saw something different, an event that blurred the lines between sports and entertainment in a way never seen before. It wasn't just about two men facing off. It was about two legends from vastly different worlds colliding in a battle that no one had dared to imagine. But as the date approached, the real question remained unanswered. What would happen when Khabib and The Rock finally stepped into the same arena, face to face, with the world watching? The buzz around Khabib vs. The Rock reached a fever pitch, with fans, analysts, and even fighters weighing in on the surreal matchup. Some called it a marketing stunt, a crossover event meant to generate headlines but never materialize. Others believed something bigger was brewing, a spectacle that transcended sports and entertainment. Yet beneath the surface, behind the interviews and social media hype, the reality was far more complex. Both men had something to prove, but for vastly different reasons, reasons that remained hidden from the public eye. Khabib, known for his unwavering discipline and devotion to his values, had walked away from the sport at the peak of his career, leaving behind a legacy untouched by defeat. He had no reason to return, no unfinished business in the octagon. Yet when the idea of facing The Rock was brought to him, there was hesitation, not because he feared losing, but because he questioned the purpose. Why fight a man who had never competed in a real mixed martial arts bout? Why step back into the spotlight when he had already achieved everything he set out to do? It wasn't until a private conversation with his father's closest friend that Khabib began to see things differently. This wasn't about titles or records. It was about showing that a fighter's spirit wasn't defined by rules or expectations. It was about proving that honor and strength could exist in any arena. On the other side, The Rock found himself in unfamiliar territory. He had been a champion in WWA, a dominant force in scripted combat, and an action hero capable of taking down entire armies on screen. But this was different. There were no choreographed moves, no predetermined outcomes, only two men testing their limits. Skeptics questioned his ability to hold his own, dismissing him as a performer rather than a true fighter. But those who knew him best understood something the world often overlooked: his relentless drive, his obsession with pushing beyond limits, and his refusal to be underestimated. He had spent years training with real fighters, absorbing techniques, and sharpening his body into a weapon. This wasn't about proving anything to the world. It was about proving something to himself. As the details of the event remained shrouded in secrecy, whispers of underground negotiations and secret training camps began to surface. Reports suggested that Khabib had been seen training in an undisclosed location, working on techniques never before witnessed in his fights. Meanwhile, The Rock had gone completely off the grid, canceling public appearances and vanishing from social media. Theories ran wild. Was he training with elite MMA fighters? Was he preparing for something more brutal than anyone expected? The silence only added to the intrigue, making it clear that whatever was happening behind closed doors, it was bigger than anyone realized. Meanwhile, the fight community was divided. UFC legends, wrestlers, and combat sports analysts debated endlessly about how such a fight would unfold. Some argued that Khabib's unmatched grappling skills would make it a one-sided contest, that The Rock wouldn't last a minute on the ground. Others pointed out his sheer size and strength advantage, questioning whether Khabib could handle the raw power of a man nearly twice his weight. But amidst the discussions, one question remained unanswered: under what rules would they compete? While fans speculated about the format, a deeper mystery began to unfold. A leaked report suggested that a private benefactor was backing the event, someone with immense power and influence. Rumors linked the event to an underground fight organization, a shadowy group known for arranging high-stakes matches that never made it to the public eye. Were Khabib and The Rock unknowingly walking into something far bigger than a simple exhibition? And if so, what were they really fighting for? Days before the official announcement, a cryptic message appeared online, a single phrase that sent shockwaves through the internet: 2 warriors. One night. No limits. It was accompanied by a blurred image: 2 figures standing across from each other in an empty arena, their faces obscured, their identities hidden. But for those who had been following the story, the message was clear. The fight was happening, and it was unlike anything the world had ever seen. As the world held its breath, waiting for an official confirmation, something unexpected happened. Both Khabib and The Rock went completely silent. No statements, no press conferences, no training footage. The anticipation had reached a boiling point, yet those at the center of it had vanished from the public eye. Fans scoured every possible source for clues, but all they found were rumors, whispers of closed-door negotiations, secretive contracts, and an agreement that defied conventional sports regulations. The deeper people looked, the more questions arose. Why was the event shrouded in secrecy? And who was really in control? Then, out of nowhere, an encrypted video surfaced on the dark web. It wasn't polished or edited for mass consumption. It was raw, shaky footage, seemingly recorded in secret. The setting was unknown, but in the dimly lit frame, two figures stood inside what looked like a private training facility. The first was unmistakable: Khabib, dressed in his usual training gear, moving with the precision and intensity that made him a legend. But the second figure wasn't The Rock. It was someone else, someone bigger, someone faster than any of Khabib's previous opponents. The brief clip ended before the figure's face could be seen, but one thing was clear: Khabib wasn't just preparing for a fight. He was preparing for something far more dangerous. Speculation spread like wildfire. If Khabib wasn't training for The Rock, then who was he training for? And why had The Rock disappeared entirely? Theories ranged from staged misdirection to something more sinister. Some believed The Rock had backed out, realizing the impossibility of facing a fighter of Khabib's caliber. Others insisted he was undergoing a level of training that no one had ever seen before, transforming himself into something beyond the Hollywood action star people knew. But the most chilling theory was the one few dared to speak aloud. What if this wasn't just a fight? What if this was something else entirely? Then came the breaking point. A well-known sports journalist, someone with deep connections in the fight world, released a cryptic message on social media. This isn't about money. This isn't about ego. This is about something much bigger, and when the truth comes out, the world won't be ready. The post was deleted within minutes, but screenshots had already spread across the internet. What did he mean? And more importantly, why was the message erased so quickly? The silence was broken in the most unexpected way. A mysterious invitation was sent to select members of the media, written on thick jet black cardstock with no logos, no branding, just a single location and time. No event details, no explanation, only the promise that all questions would be answered. The location? An abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of an unnamed city. The time? Midnight. Those who received the invitation faced a choice: ignore the strange request and risk missing the biggest story in sports history, or step into the unknown, knowing they might not like what they found. But for those who chose to go, one thing was certain: the truth was finally coming. And it was far darker than anyone had imagined. The night of the mysterious gathering arrived, and those who had dared to accept the invitation found themselves in a place that felt more like the setup for an underground conspiracy than a fight announcement. The warehouse stood alone in the middle of nowhere, its massive steel doors slightly ajar, revealing only darkness inside. The air was thick with uncertainty, every step forward feeling like a plunge into the unknown. Cameras weren't allowed, and security was tighter than anything seen at a traditional sports event. This wasn't a press conference. It was something else entirely. Inside, a single spotlight illuminated the center of the vast space. The air smelled of damp concrete and iron, and the distant hum of machinery echoed through the silence. A group of figures stood in the shadows, their faces obscured. Then, without warning, footsteps cut through the stillness. From opposite sides of the warehouse, two men emerged: Khabib and The Rock. But there was something different about them. They weren't here for show. There was no bravado, no forced tension. They both looked like men who had been through something. Something they couldn't talk about. Then, a voice echoed through the space, though its source remained unseen. You came here expecting a fight announcement. But this isn't about a fight. This is about a choice. The crowd murmured, confusion and unease rippling through them. A large screen flickered to life behind the two men, revealing grainy footage that sent a chill down every spine. It was an underground facility, one that looked more like a high-security military compound than a gym. Inside, fighters were being tested, pushed beyond their limits in ways that didn't seem legal, let alone ethical. And then, the camera panned to a figure in the center of it all. A fighter unlike anything anyone had seen before. Faster than the fastest. Stronger than the strongest. And utterly devoid of emotion. Khabib and The Rock exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. They had known about this long before anyone else. The fight the world had been waiting for was never meant to happen. The real reason they had gone silent, the real reason they had disappeared, was because they had uncovered something much bigger than a competition. Someone or something had been testing the limits of human combat, and whatever they had created was about to be unleashed. The voice continued, calm yet unsettling. You wanted the biggest fight in history. But what if I told you the greatest fighters weren't born? They were built? The screen cut out, plunging the room into darkness. And in that moment, the truth became clear. The fight wasn't Khabib vs. The Rock. It was Khabib and The Rock vs. whatever had been created in the shadows. As the warehouse doors slammed shut behind them, locking them inside, one final realization settled in. This wasn't about legacy. This wasn't about sports. This was about survival.